Thank you very much. Let us begin this very special occasion today as we sing the national anthem, the first stanza. Immediately after that, the next will be the unit battery anthem. As we stand still wherever we are. Thank you. Thank you very much. Because it is thank you very much to my particular honor and privilege to respectfully welcome everyone to the 206th inaugural lecture students of the University of Rhode Island. Well, without wasting time, it is time for me to establish the protocol for everyone to speak in this program. Successfully, I have the honor to introduce the Vice Chancellor of the University of Port Harcourt, Professor Abraham Judge. Welcome, sir. Let me respectfully welcome Miss today, the Deputy Vice Chancellor Administration, Professor Chikubi Onyanso. I also have the people of honor to respectfully introduce to us the Deputy Vice Chancellor Academic of the University, Professor Rosemary Ogu. The next here is the Registrar of the University of Port Harcourt, Dr. Gloria Chander. Okay, sorry. That is equally sorry for that. After the TBC Academic of the University, the next person in the hierarchy is the Deputy Vice Chancellor of Research and Development of the University, Professor Angela Hidden-Humphreys. And after that, in the hierarchy is the Registrar of the University, Dr. Mrs. Gloria Chander. You're welcome. Then we also welcome in our history the university librarians, the Professor Nelly Demartel. Also, I have the honor to welcome the Dean of the Faculty of Education, Professor Chita Williams. Thank you very much. The master here today is a very special, distinguished personality who is giving the 206th inaugural lecture series of the University of Harvard, all the way from the Faculty of Education, Professor Grant Abraham. Very respectfully, I have the honor to inform us that two of our own are here today. I'm talking about the Vice Chancellor of Ignatius and Children University, Professor Rudderless. And today, we also have one of our own, who is also unknown. I'm talking about Professor Prince Chinedu Mom, the Vice Chancellor of the Central University of Environment and Technology. Here, a member of the Government Council, is announced today. You're welcome, sir. The former President of Professional Development, Professor Yusuf Menari, is also here. It's nice to see you again, sir. And of course, we have the Emeritus Professor Ahmed, welcome, sir. Former Principal Officer of the University here today, and because of time, we're not able to do that. But let me respectfully inform us that other different personalities here, former Registrar of the University, Dr. Ojo, that has also is here, you're welcome. And let me also respectfully introduce to us a former TDC RNT of the University, Professor Ben Willie Abe, you're welcome. You're welcome. And we respectfully welcome everybody to this today. Thank you very much. I am looking, this is my head to see, and I'm not be told that if someone needs to see Professor Ibucho is also here. So welcome, sir. Welcome, sir. I said, because I don't understand here, you can't see anybody, so I especially apologize. Apologize. And welcome everyone. The professors here, directors of centers and institutes, you are welcome. Our heads of department, you are welcome. In fact, respectfully, all the deans of our faculties here present today, you are most welcome. And all our invited guests to our way just to attend this inaugural lecture. We thank you for finding time to be here today. And finally, all the friends, people that are here. And the students from the Faculty of Education, you are welcome to the 206th inaugural lecture series. May I respectfully invite Chancellor Sir to the registrar of the university for the rest of the program. Thank you.
Welcome people to the 206th inaugural lecture series. So the and I have the honor and privilege to invite the Vice Chancellor, Professor Abraham Judgment, to make his opening remarks. The Vice Chancellor.
Please, come on.
Thank you.
Right. And great discovery with beneath the restless waves. Once again, I welcome you all to this 206th inaugural lecture. You are welcome. Thank you, and God bless us all.
I hereby invite the Dean, Faculty of Education, Professor Cheta Williams, to deliver the citation of the inaugural lecturer, Professor Nathaniel Abraham. The Dean.
The Vice Chancellor and management, distinguished guests, permit me to present a citation on Professor Nathaniel Abraham, Beard Ons, Ibadan, MWed PhD, University of Port Harcourt, member and fellow of several professional organizations and associations. Professor Nathaniel Abraham was 1966 to the family of late Sir Nathaniel Abraham and noble Cordelia Okachi Abraham ni Nwoko from Omigwe local government area of Rivers State. He started his primary education in 1972 at State School 1 Ozwaha, when his father taught in the school and did primary 2 to primary 6 at State School 1 Alo, and accredited as certificate examination in 1977. Between September 1977 and June 1982, he had his secondary education at the prestigious County Grammar School, Ikwereche. He qualified as a teacher before the age of 19, when he earned the Nigeria Certificate of Education, NCE, in 1982. He holds Bachelor of Education in 1989. Professor Nat Abraham did the mandatory National Youth Service Corps, NYSC, in the defunct Gongola State, where he functioned as a Corps Liaison Officer, CLO, in charge of Ukari, the government area. He earned a He holds Master of Education, MWed, 1992, and Doctor of Philosophy, PhD, 2000, from the University of Port Harcourt. He started his teaching career at the former River State College of Education, now Ignatius Ajero University of Education, as an assistant lecturer, 1995-1999. He joined the studies of the University of Port Harcourt in February 1999 as assistant lecturer, and rose through the ranks to become a professor on 3rd December 2013. Lecturer founded the African Journal of Education and Development Studies, an international journal for multidisciplinary studies. It was the first journal in the Faculty of Education, University of Port Harcourt, to be hosted on the internet. He has taught pre-degree certificate program, undergraduate and postgraduate courses, and has mentored and still mentoring many students. Professor Nat Abraham has supervised numerous PhD theses, MWed dissertations, and first-degree projects. Many of his former students and supervisees are professors, academics at different levels, and others who are public office holders or privately employed. His contribution to human capital development is a source of fulfillment to him. He has assessed many candidates for professorial and readership promotions from virtually the 6 geopolitical zones of Nigeria. He was editor-in-chief, national editor of the Nigerian Journal of Educational Administration and Planning, NJAP, the journal and other publication of Nigerian Association for Educational Administration and Planning, NIAM, from 2014 to 2018. He is a consulting editor and member of editorial boards of many journals in Nigeria and overseas. The inaugural lecturer had served as chairman and member of National University Commission and NUC programs accreditation teams, as well as chairman NUC Student Support Services Resource Verification. In the area of research, he has to his credit 1 textbook on educational administration, 6 edited books, and over 100 impactful articles, 45 of which are international publications published in highly reputable journals across the globe. He has attended numerous local and international conferences where he presented papers, including keynotes and lead papers. He served 2 terms as head of department, 2014 to 2018, during which period he successfully organized 3 conferences. The last conference he organized as head of department in 2018 was personally graced by Her Excellency, Justice Suset Eberechi Nyesom Wike, as a sitting First Lady of Rivers State. Her very rich academic address was published in the 2018 conference edition of the departmental journal, African Journal of Educational Research and Development. Professor Nat M. Abraham served as director College of Continuing Education from 15th June 2020 to 13th June 2024. He served as the 16th and he served in the 16th and 17th Governing Council, representing congregation 2021 to 2025. Professor Abraham served as president, Senior Staff Club of the University of Port Harcourt between 2017 and 2019. He was chairman of Council Committee on Students' Welfare and also served in other committees, leadership and administrative contributions outside the university. 1. Founding National Chairman, President General, Ikwere Youth Movement, IYM. 2. First Center Manager, National Teachers Institute, NTI, Postgraduate Diploma in Education, PGDE program, Port Harcourt, 2004 to 2014. Resource person, NDDC retraining program for core subject teachers in NDDC states, 2008 to 2012. Manager, Community Relations, Greater Port Harcourt City Development Authority, on leave of absence. The 2008 MDG Teachers Retraining Program under the Millennium Development Project, Rivers State at Center Coordinator, 15th to 18th December 2008. The 2009 MDG Teachers Training Program under the Millennium Development Project, Rivers State at Center Coordinator, 20th to 24th July 2009. The 2010 MDG Teacher Retraining Program under the Millennium Development Project, Rivers State at Center Coordinator, 15th to 20th August 2010. Professor Nat M. Abraham enjoys the grace of a stable family. He is happily married to his friend and professional colleague, Professor Lois Nkechi Abraham. And the union is blessed with 6 promising adult children, 3 males and 3 females. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I present to you this astute teacher, an erudite scholar, prolific writer, and humane administrator, Professor Nat Mbon Abraham, to deliver the 260th inaugural lecture titled, The Rudderless Ship and its Major Rescuer.
Thank you, Dean. I thought the citation was made shorter. I didn't know it would be this long. The protocol has been properly established. And I know that everyone is itching to know what that rudderless ship is and who the main rescuer is. If you look up there at the slide, you will see a ship. And you see there is a signal that just showed on the dashboard. There is a rudder failure signal that is showing. It's just a 10-minute, I play it again, a 10-second video, very short. You see, the very moment the rudder failure signal showed, the ship lost course to the extent that it collided with a rock somewhere. Distinguished audience here gathered will imagine if this lecture is coming from the Department of Marine Engineering or Marine Transportation. No, it is an inaugural lecture from the Department of Educational Management. The whole story is that the rudders of a ship, if you see, if you see the arrow, the very small thing just before the propeller, before the thing that looks like the fan, as small as it is, in comparison with the size of the ship, that is the rudder, as little as it is. The very moment that rudder fails, the ship will continue to sail, it will continue to move. But from that moment, it begins to drift. It is at the mercy of the sea current. It will not go to the direction it actually wanted to go. The story here is that the rudders of a ship are what the policies, particularly educational policies, are to a country. As insignificant, as little as the policies may appear, if you look at the national policy on education, it is not as voluminous as this my lecture. It is a small pamphlet, but that is the Bible of education in Nigeria. The very moment any nation toys with its policies, that nation begins to drift. It may just be existing, but you find a situation where that nation will not achieve its targeted objectives or destination. I am a professor of educational management with specialization in educational administration. Apart from being the son of a teacher, a long-standing headmaster of blessed memory, and even my 81-year-old mother here seated served for several years as a teacher. I witnessed severally when teachers in Nigeria had to go on strike. And each time you checked, the thing that made them go on strike was that government had failed at one point or the other to do what it had agreed to do, what it had said in its policy. We shall do this, we shall do that. And finally, I found myself in the teaching profession. And since I came in, it has been one strike after another, still because of the same reason. There are three pictures there. You see, a ship without a rudder simply means that there is lack of strategic vision or policies. And when the policies, we have said that the policies function for control. The moment you have good policies and you ensure that the policies are properly implemented, things go seamlessly. Things go very, very easy. But if the policies are not implemented or truncated at one point or the other, there is loss of control, like you see in the second picture. And oftentimes, a country without strong leadership will encounter instability, failures, poverty, and stagnation. Let's look at Nigeria as a ship. Plato, in his work, The Republic, several years ago, likened nations as ships. And oftentimes we hear this saying, ship of state. And we have said it here that without clear direction and knowledge of the nautical map. What the policies do for you is that they give you direction. Just as the ship's captain, even as broad as the sea may look like, he has an idea of what course to navigate when the rudders are in good shape. But the very moment the rudders are faulty, he runs into crisis. Let us try to justify the metaphor, the rudderless ship. There are so many things. There are so many things, but we are for time constraint, we are going to look at just a few of them. And the very first there is eroded moral values. Eroded moral values. As at 1960, when Nigeria gained independence, the likes of Brazil, Malaysia, Singapore were regarded as developing nations like Nigeria, third world nations. But if you check, these countries have joined the League of Developed Nations, and Nigeria still goes by that derogatory alias of developing nations, because we have allowed our values to be eroded. Corruption is systemic. Corruption is systemic. You find a situation where even when policies are properly enunciated, properly formulated, those who should guide the implementation, those who should sponsor implementation, often see what is released as maybe a piece of the national cake from which large chunks must be excised. We have failure to implement educational policies. Before independence, when we operated the regional government, the Eastern regional government, the Western regional government established the free UPE program, followed by the East, followed by the North. But you see a situation where it became almost impossible at a time to implement policies. It did not end there. Till today, Nigeria still grapples with trying to implement policies. We are experts as Nigerians. We are experts in formulating policies, beautiful policies formulated on paper, but we have serious difficulty implementing those policies. Another major problem with which we justify this metaphor is proprietors abandoning brand. What do I mean by this? The University of Port Harcourt is a federal university. The proprietor of this university is the federal government of Nigeria. But we find a situation where the children of the president, the children of the senators, the children of the ministers, the children of political office holders are not in public schools. We have water. University of Port Harcourt, sorry that I sound this way, but that is true. We have water. My brother, former DVC Aruandi, is laughing because I had taken him up on this before. We produce water, even though I know for some reasons the factory had problem. But if you produce water, for instance, and you sell to people, and when you invite guests to your place for lunch, you serve a different brand of water, something is wrong with your product. So that is the problem. If Mr. President, if the senators, if all those who are in charge of our Commonwealth, who superintend over our Commonwealth with us, will send their children elsewhere and allow others, our children, to school, to attend public schools, it means that they know that there is something lacking in the quality of education they have given to us. Religious intolerance is equally a symptom of policy failure. Why do I say this? If from beginning we have interreligious dialogues from elementary school, primary school, secondary, universities. Children know that they can cohabit. Children know that they are created by the same God. Whether you worship in the church or you worship in the mosque or you worship in the shrine, somehow you try to reach the most supreme being. Because of policy failure, we find a situation where the Christian looks at the Muslim with some suspicion. The Muslim looks at the Christian with some suspicion. All can be traced to policy failure. We have the problem of insecurity, still related to what I have just mentioned about religious intolerance. And then instructional failure. Instructional failure is not because we do not have qualified manpower. Seated in this hall are great men and women, professors of international repute. But what can a professor of chemistry, for instance, do if he has an empty laboratory? If he does not have the reagents, if he does not have the equipment and other things to teach? So it is there. If you look at our national policy, they will tell you government shall provide, government will do this, government will do that, yet they don't ever do it. We have poor level of education due to poor funding. UNESCO recommended, is not a force. UNESCO recommended that for you to have, education is a costly venture. For you to have good quality education, that every nation should devote about 26% of their annual budget to education. But I looked at, if you have the booklet, somewhere you see a table spanning 10 years, showing budgetary allocation to education. Nigeria has never budgeted up to 8% of, to education. We have budgeted as low as 4%. That is to tell you how bad things are. You do not expect, even if you resurrect Socrates, resurrect Plato, resurrect Aristotle, and tell them to go and teach without the necessary facilities and the infrastructure, they will not do well. We have economic recession, which still boils down to the same policy failure. Closely related to that is mono-commodity economy. This is the problem that Nigeria and Venezuela and some other countries have. Nigeria struck oil years ago, and as at when the first national policy on education was published in 1977, that was the period of oil boom. And our people felt that it will continue to be rosy. We did not plan for the rainy day. And not long after that, when children from everywhere had come, we'll give you free education, we'll give you this, not planning for such expansion, there was oil glut. The price of oil fell. We had no other commodity to fall back on. Our economy began the nosedive down. And that has been the major problem because we concentrate on only petroleum. There are so many minerals that this country can thrive on and continue to be as rich as God has made us to be. We have the problem of unemployment and that of qualified manpower, teaching manpower. I know I said earlier that it is not as if we don't have qualified manpower. But where this problem exists mostly is in rural areas. Some time ago, before 13,150 teachers were employed in 2013 under the leadership of Chibuike Amechi as governor, I carried out a study, and we found that in rural communities, some rural communities in Rivers State, we had in some cases only 3 teachers, some places 4 teachers, including principal. But funny enough, you still found alphas, 9 alphas, 8 alphas coming from these schools. So it's a case of who is fooling who, but we must try to get it right. All leadership poor leadership, where those who should implement starve those that should implement these policies of the resources with which they should implement policies. The next one I want to talk a little on is executive, still part of justification. The one I call executive rascality, irrational legislative exuberance, and judicial maronity. These ones may not be everyday grammar. They are not things you see in every dictionary of English lexicon. But by executive rascality, we mean a situation where executives act arbitrarily without recourse to the laws. They see themselves as untouchables. Nobody is looking at what the rule says. Nobody is looking at the policies. They just carry on. You know, they make decisions at times that even undermine policies that have been formulated. And because of that, the legislators, those who make the rules, the laws for us, now have what I call legislative overreach and procedural imprudence. They just carry on. If the executive is carrying on this way, then, well, let's just scatter the whole thing. And then judicial maronity. Maronity, that word cannot be found anywhere in the dictionary. You can find maroon. You can find marooned, which simply means stranded. Left somewhere, maybe in a forgotten island, somewhere. You are stranded. Maybe there was a shipwreck and somebody is stranded. Sincerely sorry, but that is the truth about our judicial arm. Oftentimes we say, they don't do this, they don't do that. But frankly speaking, they are stranded. They are stranded. It's a situation where nobody is ready to bail the cat. And that is why the ship of state is drifting. And the last that we look at in this section is lack of political hygiene. Lack of political hygiene here simply means the positive virtues like accountability, integrity, and transparency in politics. How many of the politicians of today, sorry, I know many are here seated, but that is the truth. But how many? Only very few hold on to these virtues of accountability, integrity, and transparency. Only very few. You know, so when you look at this, it justifies why our ship of state is drifting. The next we look at here is who is the major rescuer of the rudderless ship. If you look at section 9 of the National Policy on Education, that section is devoted to planning and administration of education. And section A132 of that section 9 tells you that the success of any system of education is hinged on proper planning framework, efficient administration, and adequate financing. And this actually is the domain of educational management and educational managers. And so I tell you boldly that as it concerns the ship of state, as it concerns that rudderless ship, the major rescuer is the educational manager. Nat Abraham standing before you is a major rescuer because I am a professor in educational management. Educational management is a specialized area. So many things we're into: planning, organizing, implementing policies, and all of that. But our major role is in the area of policy implementation. Looking at the process of policy making, it is not easy. We know that policy is whatever a government wants to do or does not want to do. But policy making is a process of articulating, developing, and designing policies that guide and govern educational systems. If you look up there, you see a cycle, the process of educational making. And there, the first we see is problem identification. This problem can be identified by the president. It can be identified by his ministers. It can be identified by anybody in government. It can equally be identified by the ordinary citizen who will carry this to the representatives to say, if we do this, it will be good for the country. And following problem identification is agenda setting. When you come together and put down on paper what you want to achieve, put timelines and the resources that you need to achieve them. Policy formulation follows when you spell out clearly, we shall do this, we shall do that, we shall not do this. And then policy adoption. This is where, no matter who has been delegated to go and do it, brings it back to government, brings it back to the legislative arm, that we now say, debate on it and adopt it as a policy of the nation. Policy implementation is where it comes to us, those of us who are in the schools or the various other places that educational managers serve. Policy evaluation, if you look at that cycle, you see that there are two other dotted circles inside. At a time, there may be need, if you see that certain things are not going well, you may go back and try to refine it. You don't wait until the whole thing crashes before you start again. And even if it is true, even if it is very, very good, a time comes when such policies may not be viable anymore. They may be obsolete and you want to change them. And that calls for evaluation and you start the process again. Let's look at the relationship between politics and the formulation and execution of educational policies. Everything that has to do with policy formulation is heavily laced with politics. Even the implementation itself, from policy conception, that's the agenda setting, policy formulation to adoption, they are 100% the responsibilities of government and her functionaries. But at the point of implementation, you still need government for implementation, because if the resources are not provided, you will be frustrated. There are other problems of policy formulation and execution. Non-involvement of critical stakeholders. If you are making a decision, even in the unit classroom, with little children in the classroom, you want to make a decision. If somebody comes late to class, what do? Allow them to suggest. Don't be autocratic. When you carry people along in formulating the policies, it is easier to implement such policies. Lack of political will. Lack of political will and sincerity of purpose to implement policies. This is one major problem. I am a politician, if I say so. I have friends who are in politics, but the truth must be told. One major problem is that there is lack of political will, and more so, lack of sincerity of purpose to implement policies. There are several examples. The examples, the things that make us go on strike, even as members of ASU, are things that with ease can be given out and the system will move on smoothly. Lack of leadership commitment, lack of continuity. Somebody finishes his or her tenure and he comes and condemns everything the other person has done. What you are doing is to waste the resources of the people. Why not continue with those? Why not continue with those policies, with those projects? Continue with them But we find ourselves that there is this problem of lack of continuity and a listless bureaucracy. I was talking with somebody recently, something that there is what is called ease of doing business. In some places, one stop, you solve your problem. In some other places, 7 stops, you have not succeeded in solving the same problem that was solved at a go. In 2004, I carried out a study, and we found other factors that account for the problem of policy formulation and execution. Unclear information as per the objectives to be pursued, inadequate funding, laxity, and total lack of control at the implementation stage. Let's quickly look at educational policies and how they were formulated. There are so many of them. There are so many of them from Eric Ashby of 1960 up to present day. But we will not go to that extent. We'll just pick 2 and use those 2 to expound. The first is the local language for instruction policy. When we were growing up, people my age and older, we were taught in the local language or the language of the immediate environment. English language was only taught as a subject in school. And so those from Owerri axis of Igbo land, while the teacher is teaching English, he or she could say, Obi is a boy, Hashem Nene. But every other thing is taught in the local language. Unfortunately, we find ourselves in a country where recently, as recent as 3rd to 6th November last year, the National Council on Education, the highest level where educational policies are made, met in Akure in Ondo State, and they canceled the use of local language in teaching in schools. They forget that China, Japan, and such great countries do not teach using English language. They teach using their local languages and they're excelling. But we have jettisoned our local languages. See how difficult it is with younger generation. You ask a young Ikwere child, Nda, he or she tells you, fine. That is even when the person understands that the Nda is how are you. That's to tell you how bad things have been. But that has been cancelled. The second is the French as a second language policy. If you look at all the neighbors of Nigeria, north, east, west, all our neighbors are Francophone. And we put in our policy that because all our neighbors are Francophone, it will be proper that every Nigerian should speak French. It is in our national policy. And at a point, I decided to do a study with Iwowari in 2007. We used Ondo and River States. We found that as at that time, out of the 246 schools that used to be, secondary schools that used to be River State, government-owned, only 39 were offering French as a secondary school subject. Only 39. And in all, there were only 77 French teachers. So how can you cross to Cotonou to buy a car? You need an interpreter to communicate. The only neighbor of Nigeria that I don't know what language she speaks is the Atlantic Ocean down south, the one we call Abaji. I don't know what language. So after this lecture, whoever knows what language Abaji speaks should let me know. So you see that if such important policies can be done away with, it means that we are not ready to get it right so far. Let's look at the patterns of policy formulation and execution in Nigeria. As at when I defended my PhD thesis in the 1999-2000 session, Nigeria was just coming out of military dictatorship that we suffered or we endured for many years. So I went to do my thesis in this area, and the two major patterns we found them were via military fiat, which is the same as executive fiat, and the second through stakeholder consultation. Whereas we know that military fiat or executive fiat is easier. You just speak as if you are God, let there be light. But whether the light comes or not, only God knows. In the sake of in that of God, he said, let there be light, and there was light. But military fiat, they just say it. So it is time saving. But how it works out at the end of the day is yet another ball game. But the second one is through stakeholder consultation and engagement. That may take some time, but at the end of it, it is better, because all the problems, they say two good heads are better than one. Where you have brought intelligent, experienced, critical stakeholders, they come together and come out with a blueprint. So it's more enduring than that. My footprints in the rescue mission. As noted earlier, my interest in educational policy studies began when I did my PhD. So it marked my incursion in that area. And as early as 2001, as a very young academic, I developed a model called the Quality Execution of Policies Model, QEP. What that simply entails is promptness in whatever you're doing. Promptness, you don't delay in whatever you're doing. You see a situation where some persons or two persons are given similar positions. One person is excelling, the other person is not excelling. Sorry that I mentioned name. The current minister of the FCT, hate him, like him. Wherever you keep him, he is working. He is working. He says we'll do this, fund is released for that, and you see that action is, a good example is here in our campus. The ultra-modern convocation arena we have. Some other persons would have mentioned that project, and 15, 20 years after, it will remain as an unfinished project. But adopting, I didn't say he adopted it from my study. I do not know. But what guides him, wherever he has been, is the QEP and promptness in whatever you're doing, release of funds, implementation of policies, and all of that. Another thing I came up with, another footprint in the rescue mission, is what I call the because I'm involved theory. I have presented several keynotes, several lead papers, locally and internationally, and I've spoken on this time and time again. What this simply means is that, like I said earlier, you have your children somewhere. If you are, as a secondary school child, I had children of permanent secretaries in school with me in County Grammar School. My classmate, Professor Chisa DK of ROS is here. We are in secondary school together. We had children of palm sex and all of that in school. Because of those children, that maybe you have a governor's son in your class, he will not appropriate for your school alone. Because his child is involved somewhere, he will appropriate such that it will favor all the schools around. When Odili became governor or elect, his only son, Peter Jr., was at UDSS. I am sure some former teachers of UDSS are here. That school was not fenced. I have this on good authority. But as soon as the profile rose, Peter Odili, His Excellency, assisted in fencing the school the son was attending, not out of so much love, but out of the because I'm involved theory, because his only son was there. So there are a number of links. We have carried out a number of studies which were commissioned either by the Rivers State government or the Bayelsa State government, that led to a number of things, including the one that led to the employment of 13,150 teachers in 2013. I pay glowing tribute to my senior friend and colleague, Alabo Professor A.K. Okoroisai. With him, we advised that government from the studies that we saw that a number of schools, many schools did not have teachers. And we advised that government to say, employ teachers, staff them, staff the schools. And luckily they listened and staffed all those schools. Alabo was later appointed Director, Quality Assurance. Whatever happened to that office today is what I do not know. Like my dean said, another contribution to knowledge is that as at 2004, I founded this journal, even though it had a little hiccup when I went to Greater Port Harcourt on assignment. But we have had people from Italy, from other parts of the world, publish in that journal and all of that. Well, I would just see this as other contributions, not necessarily to knowledge, but if you check well, they are still to knowledge. During the period I served as Director CCE for 4 years, we saw that the geography program was stopped at a time, but somehow we fought and got it back. We expanded the certificate program across virtually all the faculties, apart from college, engineering, and a few others. A number of our students, for one reason or the other, those who were in INAUGURAL Center could not graduate when the center was closed. We got most of you here seated, members of Senate, approve amnesty. I can tell you that we have, even though I'm no longer director there, but we still receive calls. We still receive thank you calls. And so let me use the opportunity to thank VC for that. And we finished, my successor at CCE is here. We finished this paid work for the commencement of a study center at Okrika. Why the choice of Okrika? We saw that the government of the day began to revive the refinery at Alese Eleme. It is Alese Eleme, but as you get to that place, even from opposite the gate, you see Okrika homes. And so we felt that thousands of Nigerians come to do business in that place. And they can do business and study at the same time and help improve the financial base of the university. We started the spade work, completed those two pictures there. You can see some kings of Okrika. The first one, we have the Sekura of the Niger Delta, King Ateketom, the other one with another kingdom. But unanimously, they agreed. And to the glory of God, even though that center did not kick off while I was there, we today have an Okrika center of CCE. My future research focus. We are just about 5 years away from the target period for the actualization of the SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals. There are 17 of such goals, and SDG 4 is on quality education. I am somebody who believes, and I'm yet to be proven wrong, that the most important of all the SDGs is SDG 4, which is quality education. And the moment quality education is achieved, every other remaining 16 SDGs will fall in place. And because of that, I have decided to devote attention to researching on appraising the extent of attainment of SDG in Nigeria. Already, I have set machineries in motion to conduct a study. It already has a title, 5 years to target 2030. Where is Nigeria in Sustainable Development Goals attainment? We shall appraise educational policies to see if they have been sufficiently implemented. And if they've not been implemented, the much we can do is to advise. Conclusion. I will conclude this inaugural lecture by presenting to you what I call the treasure and heart theory. You can equally call it the Matthew 6:21 theory. What does that say? The Holy Bible in Matthew's Gospel, chapter 6, verse 21, conveys the word of Jesus Christ, the words of Jesus Christ himself, that for where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. King James Version. Education is simply the transmission of knowledge, skills, culture, acceptable norms from one generation to the other. And education is a lifelong thing, from birth, even from conception. Those in medicine, those in O&G, know that at some point, if you clap something beside the tummy of a pregnant woman, the baby in her womb lives. The baby is reacting. The baby is learning already. So from conception up till death, learning takes place. And so, with children, the whole essence of this is that since education is a lifelong process and begins from birth, as human beings, rational, humane humans, there is no treasurable treasure. There is no treasure more treasurable than your children. I have 6 of them. They are also treasurable. There is no, I love all of them equally, and I know that whoever has children loves them. And if you do, if they are your treasure, wherever you are, if your child is in the very institution that you superintend, everything will go well for that institution. The quality of effectiveness of education service delivery will be top-notch if we take this Matthew 6:21 policy seriously, because educational policies will be effectively implemented. If Mr. President, for instance, has his child in one public school and he hears that somebody is toying with that school, he will not let it, he will not let that lie low. He will fight because of that treasure. Consequently, for the fact that their treasures, their children are in public schools, their hearts will be there, and they will use the instruments of their offices to ensure that all public schools get the best. The treasure and heart theory can also be called Matthew 6:21 theory. It is my modest contribution as the magic wand for effective service delivery in public educational institutions. Recommendations. I'm almost done. Recommendations. And so we are saying that this rudderless ship must be rescued. I have in previous sections tried to tell us about the ship of state and all of that. And we have said that the crux of the matter in this lecture is that educational policies are to a country what rudder blades are to ocean-going vessels. Just as a ship with dysfunctional or faulty rudders is tossed about by waves and cannot keep its course and may get wrecked in some cases, so it is with a country without carefully formulated and sincerely implemented educational policies. Quality of education in such climate is usually poor. So what are our recommendations? Issues in educational management, which if we adopt and help us ensure that we salvage the rudders, include involving specialists in the process of policy formulation, using adequate and reliable statistical data. The UBE programs, I talked about regional UBE programs, were started without, in fact, maybe the Western region tried to do something, other regions went to copy, it's working and all of that. And somehow it failed because they did not plan with adequate statistics, adequate financing. You cannot catch a lion with your bare hands. For you to run vice chancellor and other vice chancellors here seated are cap in hand, running from one place to the other, looking for funds to run the university. To run educational institutions require plenty of funds. You don't set up schools and you back out. Do not collect tuition. Your instruction is do not collect tuition. And you expect that those who administer those schools should go and catch lions with their bare hands. Prudent management of funds and other resources, sincerity of purpose. Everyone in position of authority should be sincere to himself first and foremost, and sincere to the nation he serves. Regular supervision, leadership by example, and then periodic review. Please, before clapping, let me acknowledge the Almighty God. I never knew I would be here today standing before this august gathering. I was given the opportunity during the COVID-19 lockdown to give the 170th inaugural of Solale as VC. I still have that letter, even though my friend Adeshokwe eventually presented the 170th. I finished that work, but I made the mistake of not saving it in the cloud. It was in a laptop. I had hard copies. Even a professor at ROSU, Emeritus Professor Wea Mehule, I still owe him. A bag, Ghana must go, full of books and journals. All got raised, all got burnt when my house on campus got burnt. And I kept wondering, will I ever be able to present an inaugural? I had lost hope. Each time I wrote on the former topic, not this, it was not flowing until I decided to jettison that and do this. I thank God that he preserved me, and today I'm here paying this debt I have owed for long. Let me also acknowledge all the former vice chancellors, from Emeritus Professor Nemidim Abrix. I know he's not the first vice chancellor, but that was the first vice chancellor I met when I came. He employed me, and all of them, and those that worked with them. I thank the 8th vice chancellor, Professor N.E.S. Lale, for giving me that initial opportunity, even though I couldn't use it for no fault of mine. And very importantly, I thank my brother and friend, the incumbent vice chancellor, Professor Owunari Abraham George Will, for giving me this opportunity. If he hadn't said approved, I will not be here. You cannot just jump and come to this place. Thank you, sir. I thank all former and current principal officers. I see a number of them seated. Emeritus Professor Mark Anibo and others. I thank my big brother, a natural ruler, the Honorable Mene Kadilo Kabari, member of the Governing Council of the University of Port Harcourt. Thank you, sir, for honoring us. I also thank all former deans of the Faculty of Education, from Professor B.A. Hiazo. He was the dean when I was employed. And I thank my brother, the incumbent dean, Professor Chita Williams. He's been more than a brother and friend. He was one of those that kept worrying me. You must give inaugural, you must give inaugural. And today I have come before you. The EDM family, especially all the former heads of departments and the current one, Professor Uche Mogu, my brother from another mother. I thank all my postgraduate teachers, I saw Professor Andy Igojo here. Andy Igojo taught me research methods and advanced statistics at PhD. He was in psychology guidance and counseling. But the practice then, which I think is proper, is wherever you find that specialist, we must cooperate, we must collaborate across departmental boundaries. He taught us, even though we are in educational management. Thank you, sir, and others. all other teachers of mine. I want to believe that my secondary school teacher, I don't know if he promised to be here, Professor Nebot, NH Wonderful. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. He taught me English language as a teaching practice student. Very good in English. But on the day of our PhD convocation, I feel so sad that I lost those pictures in that inferno. He was so proud. He was calling everybody. We convoked together for PhD. And was telling everybody, that was my student, that was my student, until tomorrow. He's been so proud and supportive of me. Thank you, sir. My master's and PhD supervisors, Professor P.O.M. Nabo, former Dean Education, supervised my master's thesis, and Professor B.S. Okeke supervised my PhD thesis. The vice chancellors here present, my brothers, Professor Okoanuchukwu and Professor Prince Chinedu Mom, I thank you so very much for honoring us with your presence. I do not know how to thank sufficiently University of Port Harcourt Inaugural Lecture Assessment Committee. That team is wonderful. That team is wonderful. I thought I knew, but when I submitted my paper to them, I had a rethink and I sat up. And if I had not obeyed their instructions, maybe I wouldn't have been here today. I don't know if it is safe to mention their names, but let's leave them. But God knows them and they know themselves. God bless you richly. My parents, my father of blessed memory, my look-alike, my namesake. I also call him my corrector. I wonder what I would have been if not for the iron hand with which he handled me. I wonder what, I don't finish introducing him without calling him my corrector, because he did not spare the rod at all. But after flogging me, he will be the one to beat me and bring me back and then talk to me softly. And I'm sure that has made me be the man I am today. My paragon of beauty, 81-year-old mother. Mama, stand up for recognition. So when people see my big head, they wonder, is this your mother? She is my mother. We thank God for everything. My beloved wife and my 6 adult children, I thank you all for loving and tolerating me. They love me, they tolerate me. They understand what I mean by tolerating me. My siblings, the best you can ask for. The best God can give to anybody. My elder sister, Lady Dr. Clementina Chikika. My younger brother is not here, he's in the UK. The one following, Lady Dr. Eukaria Wallo. And the last of the family, Dr. Mrs. Madonna Wichendo. Thank you so very much. I thank my father's family, the Omoma family worldwide, and my mother's. I am sure the head is here, Comrade Ambrose Obebe. I thank my maternal home, the Nwoko dynasty. I pray they are here. I think they are here. The apostolic administrator of the Diocese of Port Harcourt. I've not seen him, but I've seen my big brother, Monsignor Dr. Emmanuel Maron, and other Catholic priests here seated. God bless you for your prayers, and other clergy and religious for your love and prayers for me. All my friends, your names are all there in the work. Please, my alma mater, County Grammar School, Ikwereche, particularly the class of 1982. A number of them have seen Chisa Dike here. Dr. Kwaku Kenneth Kwaku Date and Mr. Goodluck Owadia for typing the inaugural lecture manuscript for me. Please, I may do something. Let me pay a glowing tribute. A young man that should have been here today, my younger cousin, that probably being here should have made this event more glamorous, because I know the plans we had together for this inaugural lecture. It was to set up platform, it was to do so many things. He was alive to hear that a date had been approved. But less than 3 weeks ago, specifically on the 1st of this month, he departed this sinful world. I am talking of my younger cousin, Barrister Obinichi Chimesule. VC, with your kind permission, may I ask for a 1-minute silence for this young man? Thank you, sir. Let us please rise for a 1-minute silence. May the soul of Barrister Dr. Obinichi Chimezule and the souls of all the faithful departed, through the mercy of God, rest in peace. Amen. Thank you so very much for listening.
Professor Nat Abraham will officially present the lecture to the university, the Vice Chancellor of the university. Please, another big round of applause for the distinguished lecturer, Professor Nat Abraham.
Where your treasure is, there your heart will be. I have the honor to invite the Vice Chancellor for the closing remarks.
Distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, inaugural lecturer. Hello, please, leave the inaugural lecturer. We did something for you that is not our tradition. We don't do 1-minute silence during inaugural lectures. But because of how painful it is to you, we have to oblige that 1-minute silence. But my prayer is that those close to inaugural lecturers should not die again, so that we don't keep, doing policies, things that are outside our policies. Thank you very much. Mama Nat Abraham, I want you to stand. Let us recognize you again. God bless you. God bless you. You can sit down. Oh, giving Nat to us. God bless you. Inaugural lecturer, Uniport Water was not going around before because of capacity. But I tell you that today, the new management of Uniport Water will ensure that no other brand of water comes in here again. Inaugural lecturer, I've always known you as a very wise, intelligent man. And so when you say judicial morality, I was wondering what you were telling the judges or the judiciary. But before I finished wondering, you told me that the word is not even in the dictionary. Which means nobody can even hold you liable for anything. Very wise. And so, distinguished colleagues, eminent scholars, students, strategic partners, ladies and gentlemen, As we draw the curtain on this illuminating inaugural lecture, we must acknowledge that Professor Nat has not merely offered us a metaphor, he has held up a mirror by invoking the image of the rudderless ship. He lies with intellectual rigor and moral courage the crisis of education in our country, Nigeria, and of governance in general. Situating the Nigerian product within the enduring metaphor of a ship, the lecture reminds us that the challenges of leadership, policy coherence, and institutional stability are as old as organized society itself. What makes this exposition exceptional is its insistence that Nigeria's predicament is neither accidental nor mystical. It is structural, historical, and deeply political. Professor Nat provides penetrating insight into how the absence of strategic vision, weak policy execution, and compromised leadership have rendered the educational system vulnerable to drift. The crisis, he emphasized, is not simply a broken rudder, but a convergence of eroded moral values, commodity economic dependency, political interference, bureaucratic inertia, and what he evocatively terms executive rascality. He also talked about irrational legislative exuberance and limited judicial effectiveness. The lecture exposes the gulf between policy formulation and implementation, a gulf where dreams are deferred, institutions become weakened, and generations are imperiled. Importantly, the lecture does not descend into lamentation, no. It rather advances educational management as a critical rescue architecture for the ship of states. Is quality execution of policies, and because I am involved, models represent both a scholarly contribution and a pragmatic roadmap. My advice or take home here is, please, let everyone get involved so that nothing is left out or left undone. This lecture foregrounds collective and institutional responsibility. It challenges leaders to govern with foresight, legislators to legislate with prudence, the judiciary to uphold the rule of law, and educational administrators to ensure integrity in implementation. A ship does not drift because the sea is turbulent. It drifts because those entrusted with navigation abdicate discipline and direction. Professor Nat has diagnosed a national malaise and articulated a rescue mission anchored in ethical leadership, disciplined fiscal governance, strategic planning, and uncompromising adherence to accountability. Distinguished colleagues, this lecture shows that evidence-driven planning, adequate funding, professional leadership, stakeholders' inclusion, and disciplined execution are essential to transforming Nigeria's educational landscape. Finally, the lecture underscores the importance of sufficient resourcing, political will, and accountability. His recommendations of regular supervision, leadership by example, compulsory patronage of public institutions by officials. I'm saying that those who still have children that will go to school. But I'm sure he's talking to even those who do not have children that will go to school again. So don't say because my child is not of school age, it doesn't matter. Even if your children have finished school, please still get involved. In conclusion, this lecture provides a roadmap for responsible governance, effective educational policy, and national renewal. It leaves us with a message of hope. Let me mention here that Nigeria's ship of state has begun to sail. with honor among our global peers. And by the grace of God and with our collective efforts, we shall sustain our global honor. Ladies and gentlemen, can we just rise on our feet so that we give a standing and clapping ovation to this erudite 206th inaugural lecturer of the University of Port Harcourt, Professor Nathaniel Imbono Abraham. Thank you, and God bless us all.
Please be seated. Thank you very much. We would like to thank everyone for finding time to be here today to be a part of the 206th inaugural lecture series delivered by Professor Nat Abraham. Thank you very much. The next inaugural lecture of the University of Port Harcourt 207 series, titled National Anthem.
but in brotherhood we stand. My champions all and God to serve our sovereign motherland.
Thank you very much. Please, while we remain standing, the media will give us a special instrumental music. Please, let us remain wherever we are. The procession will be led by the Vice Chancellor, principal officers of the university, and the professors in Ghana. Then visiting professors, visiting Vice Chancellors will also join. Please, this is the order. Remain. Procession is still ongoing. Stand wherever you are, please. Let's be orderly.